Hi, I've been a miniature painter for several years now, and I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube, and I figured it was about time that I made my own. The miniatures that I paint tend to be sort of Games Workshop style miniatures, 28mm. I have painted 54mm before now, but 28, 25, 28, 32 tends to be about the size that I paint. This is probably a 32mm to 32mm miniature. It's a Mayan. I got it from a UK Games Expo called Salute, and it's particularly nice. Some good detail on him. There's going to be a lot of work done on the skin tones because the guy's nearly naked apart from a loincloth and some shoulder guards. So it's going to be quite an interesting miniature to paint. However, before we get into that, I'd like to talk about the colours, the paint colours and the brushes that I use to actually do this. So the main manufacturer that I use is Vallejo. They are an Italian manufacturer, and they do three main ranges of paints. They do their game colour paints, which come in a set of about 70 or 80 colours, and they tend to be quite bright, quite vibrant colours, and they cover fairly well for most of the range. There's a few colours in there that aren't particularly good, but we can cover those later. There is also the Model Air. This tends to be mainly for airbrush users, but can be used by paintbrush if you so desire. They're a lot more dilute than other colours, so you won't have to dilute the colour at all. If you're painting it on, you may still need to dilute it if you're going to airbrush it, but we can cover that in a later video. These colours tend to come, and the model colour as well, tends to come in much more military colours. By that I mean sort of greens and browns and muted colours, rather than sort of bright colours. So the model colour range is their most extensive. This has sort of over 200 colours in it. There's a lot of colours in this range. And they do some very, very nice colours indeed. There is also the Formula P3 range. This is made by a company called Privateer Press and is a particularly good range. Mixes very, very well with water. You can water it down quite a lot and it won't break up, and you won't get that chalky effect. The downside to this is they only do about 60 colours. The colours that they do are very, very nice, but limited. I also use the Citadel foundation colours. This is the previous range. The new range, I believe, calls them base colours. And these are highly pigmented, very, very thick paints designed to cover in one coat. Not always a good idea, but if you're in a rush it can be handy. These come in a range of about 17 colours, which is fairly limited, but if you only need to base coat in them, then it's not so much of an issue. If you use the lighter colours, it's useful for covering a dark primer. And of course you're going to need brushes to actually apply the paint with. In my case I use Raphael's. It's the 8404 range, and I use two main sizes of brush. I use a number 1 and a number 0. And I use these mainly because they are extremely good. They hold a very good point, as you can see, extremely fine point, and the body of the brush, sort of from this section onwards, holds a lot of paint without losing the fine point. They're a very, very good range of brush. They're my particular favourites. I've tried various ranges of brushes, including Winsor & Newton and Da Vinci, and I've stuck with these for most of the time I've been painting. I do also use oil colours occasionally, very occasionally. These are mostly for washes and things like that, although I am starting to sort of investigate painting areas of a miniature with it. Can be a bit of a pain to use because you have to be very, very careful how you paint it on, and it can take a very long time to dry. The colours that I tend to use, these colours are acrylic colours, meaning that they are water based, so you can water them down just with normal tap water or distilled water. you can wash your brushes out in water, so you don't need to worry about needing special thinners or anything like that. You don't need turpentine or anything like that for this, just a nice pot of water, which means that they're fantastic for the kind of painting that we do, because you can apply them very, very quickly. They dry in about 5 to 10 minutes and you can put another coat on top, and they are, all in all, fairly fantastic paints to work with. I know there are certainly a fair number of miniature painters out there that use other ranges of paints. There are various other ranges of paints. There are coat d'armes. There is also Reaper paints in America, and they do a whole set of paints. And there are several other manufacturers of paints. These are the three that I mainly use. Foundation paints for base coating, Formula P3, which are particularly good for blending because they water down very well. Model Air I use in my airbrush quite a lot. The Model Colour and Game Colour ranges I use as my sort of workhorse paints because they come in such a huge range of colours. So that's it for this video, and I'll be back soon with more.